Whether you're packing for a week-long vacation or you're prepping for an epic round-the-world trip, mastering the art of carry-on packing can save you big money. The problem is, it's not always easy to cram all your stuff in a small bag. Plus, when you travel carry-on only, there's some extra TSA rules that you need to worry about. Here are the most common carry-on packing mistakes that you'll want to avoid at all costs. Stick to the end for the biggest mistake of all. The first is to know that what you pack is important, and we'll get to more about that in a second, but equally as important is how you pack it. There are things that you'll need handy at all times, and there are other things that you'll need to remove when going through airport security. This will depend on what type of backpack or suitcase you're using, but in general, I recommend packing your extra shoes at the bottom of your bag. You can use a fancy shoe holder or just a plastic bag will do. I actually only travel with one pair of shoes and one pair of flip-flops, but your needs may be different than mine. Then clothes go on top of that, and then electronics and liquids go on top of that if you don't have a separate compartment for them. That way you can easily take out your liquids and your laptops and put them in a separate x-ray bin so that you don't annoy TSA by holding up the line and digging through your bag. I also like to have a separate bag like a fanny pack where I can carry all my important documents like passport, boarding pass, and other travel docs that I'll need to grab easily. Liquids should technically be in a clear quart-size bag, but I've never had anyone bother me for traveling with my liquids in my bathroom bag like this. That said, your mileage may vary. It's also handy to pack things you'll use during your flight and on layovers in a separate personal item bag apart from your carry-on. That way you'll have easy access to things like your laptop or a book or power bank and charger or snacks while your carry-on is packed in the overhead bin. More on personal item hacks in a second. The second mistake is not paying attention to your weight. Many airlines have weight limits for your carry-on luggage, and if you're traveling long-term with just a carry-on only, you're probably going to be overweight. The good news is that since you're not checking bags, you can usually do your check-in online and then you don't need to go to the check-in counter where they weigh your bags. You can just go straight to your gate. But this isn't always the case. Sometimes you'll still be required to go to the check-in counter even if you don't have any checked bags. When you do this, some check-in counter agents will ask you to give them your carry-on bag so that they can attach a tag to it. If this happens, do not set your carry-on bag down on the conveyor belt scale as they attach the ticket. If you do and they see that you're clearly over the weight limit, you'll likely have to pay an extra fee. On our recent flight from Sri Lanka to the Maldives, Diane forgot this and she accidentally set her bag on the scale, and the agent looked down at the scale and saw that she was 2 kilos overweight, gave us a stern look, and then passed us on. Not all agents will be this forgiving though. This hasn't happened to me, but I've heard stories of other airlines who weigh your carry-ons in other parts of the airport, like before you go through security. And so it seems like airlines are different all around the world and your mileage may vary, so it's always a slight risk. I take that back. We actually did have our carry-ons weighed just yesterday. It was with Air Asia and their evil 7 kilo weight limit. We were both over the limit, but we managed to save $75 and just get charged for one overweight bag instead of two. We left the line and rearranged our weight by cramming our personal items full and wearing our jackets and pillows and hats and fanny packs, and then jamming all of our pockets and our jackets full of other stuff. If you're traveling on a budget carrier with absurdly low weight limits, then it seems like your chances of getting weighed are higher. In these scenarios, I recommend being extra careful, whether that means just packing less or wearing all of your heavy stuff until you pass through the check-in counter and security gates. If you're finding this video useful so far, give me a thumbs up so I know to make more content like this. Another mistake is packing a phone that's not set up to work in a foreign country. Smartphones are basically useless without internet access, especially when you're dealing with language barriers and unfamiliar surroundings. That's why I prefer to set things up in advance. For international internet access, your main options are relying on Wi-Fi that could be sketchy, hunting down a physical SIM card once you arrive, or loading a travel eSIM onto your phone. Ever since switching to eSIMs, the convenience makes it hard to go back. I can easily install it directly from my phone and don't have to struggle with those tiny little plastic cards. And within minutes of landing, I have a data plan ready to rock on my phone. Olafly is my go-to recommendation for heavy data users, and I've now tested out their eSIMs in 7 different countries. They offer coverage in over 130 destinations, including more than 50 destinations with unlimited data plans. This is something that most other eSIM companies don't offer. Having unlimited data is super handy for using social media and Google Maps and other data-heavy apps while you're traveling, because it's no fun having to worry about running out of data all the time. Olafly's packages range from 5 to 90 days, so you can choose a plan tailored to your trip. To get data on your phone, simply use the link below and coupon code PROJECTUNTETHERED for an extra discount. And to see how Olafly eSIMs actually performed for me in different countries, including way out in the Sahara Desert, I'll link to my full Olafly review below. The next mistake is forgetting that certain items are prohibited in carry-on bags. This is an especially easy mistake to make if you're used to traveling with checked bags that have fewer restrictions. But the most common mistakes are packing things like liquids, gels, and aerosols in containers that are greater than 100 milliliters, even if the container isn't completely full. This includes your water bottle as well. Also, if an object is sharp, it's probably also not allowed. And this includes multi-tools or corkscrews that have a blade on them, both of which I used to travel with all the time when I used a checked bag. You're also going to want to avoid any type of self-defense items, and that includes pepper spray. I recommend checking out the full list of prohibited items on the airline's website or the TSA website. You can also just ask the TSA directly at AskTSA on Twitter or Facebook Messenger. The next mistake is packing things that you might need. It happens to the best of us because we just want to be prepared for whatever's going to happen on our trip. But I promise you, you're not going to use that extra pair of tennis shoes or those big bulky exercise rings that you thought you would use all the time to stay fit. One tip to help avoid overpacking is to check the weather. If you know it's going to be hot on your beach vacation, then don't pack a bunch of long sleeves just in case it gets chilly. It's not a bad idea to always pack a light jacket for frigid plane and bus rides though. I generally pack a packable rain jacket, and I just use that for warmth, and then it kills 2 birds with 1 stone. If the weather could get chilly or you're traveling long term, I like to pack my rain jacket plus a packable puffy jacket. This is the most minimal way I've found to be prepared for the most different types of weather. You can use one jacket or the other, or you can layer both of them for cold, wet conditions. The next tip is to research the cultural requirements of the destination you're traveling to. A lot of countries are way more conservative than we are in the West, especially when it comes to dress code. A little upfront research will help you avoid packing things that you're not going to be allowed to wear anyways. For example, we're currently hopping around the local islands in the Maldives, and if we hadn't done our cultural research, we wouldn't have known that these islands are 100% Muslim, which means that men and women have to cover up their shoulders and their knees everywhere except when you're on a designated bikini beach. Also, instead of packing a separate outfit for every day of your trip, just pack a few tops and bottoms that all match with each other. If you can mix and match everything, then you'll have more outfit combinations while minimizing the space you take up in your bag. All of my clothes are either black and gray, which makes things dead simple, but I realize this probably isn't an ideal option for people who are more fashion-minded than me. That said, you almost never need as many clothes as you think you need. And even after being on the road for 8 years, I still somehow managed to find clothes jammed in the depths of my packing cubes that never get touched. One trick is to pack your bag about a week before you leave home and try living out of it for a week. Not only will this help you remember what you need to bring, but it'll also get you into the minimalist frame of mind, so it's an easier transition when you start your epic adventure. It'll also show you ahead of time how much space you actually have. I remember before my first 10-month backpacking trip, I went crazy and ordered tons of awesome gear on Amazon. I was so busy tying up loose ends before leaving on my trip that I waited until the last night to pack everything up. Turns out half of the stuff that I bought didn't fit in my backpack, and now I didn't have any time to return it, so I basically just threw a bunch of money down the drain on stuff I had to leave behind and couldn't use. By packing light, you also have more room for souvenirs like this coconut that I painted myself to remember our epic stay in overwater bungalows here in the Maldives. Another mistake is trying to pack from memory. Write down your friggin' packing list on a piece of paper or your phone. You're almost guaranteed to forget something if you don't. Now I have multiple different packing lists saved in my Apple Notes for different types of trips. Whenever I need to pack, I just pull up the list and check items off one by one as I pack it. At the end of the trip, I review my list to see if there is anything that I wish I had packed or had left behind. I'm making a video showing exactly how I pack my carry-on bag for maximum efficiency, so make sure to subscribe if you want to get notified for that one. Next, if you're struggling to fit everything in your carry-on, make sure you're using a carry-on that maxes out the dimensions that you're allowed. These dimensions vary from airline to airline, and they're usually smaller if you're flying on a budget airline, so it's always a good idea to double check. Suitcase carry-ons are easy to max out your luggage space because they're boxy. But if you want the max space with a backpack, you have to look for a boxy design as well, otherwise you'll give up some volume. I actually made a review of the boxy carry-on that I use for my world travels, and so if you're interested, you can check that one out here. It's cheaper than a lot of the more popular options, and it's held up to a lot of my abuse jamming things full. The biggest carry-on packing mistake of all is assuming that all of your stuff needs to go on the inside of your carry-on. That's simply not true. You can free up tons of carry-on space by simply wearing or even layering your heaviest clothes and shoes onto the plane. Once you board, you can always shed layers if you need to. Other ways to get free extra space is to use a big old fanny pack like what I always travel with. I've heard of others who wear travel vests with tons of different pockets, and I'll link to a popular one down below. I've also seen travel pillows for sale that have zippers where you can just stuff your clothes on the inside, and if you already have a pillow, you could probably make one of these yourself at home. And if you're really desperate, I bet you could get away with packing non-food items in a fast food bag and pretending that it's food. But you didn't hear that one from me. For even more ideas, check out my full video on sneaky tricks for packing your personal item next. Also, don't forget to follow Project Untethered on Instagram and TikTok for our best bite-sized travel hacks. All right, guys, bye-bye.